I forgot to turn on the cameras. It's always something. Welcome to Painting with Shawna. Gotta start with a smile, because honestly, I forgot to turn off the sound. Okay, there we go. Okay, now we're back and we're at it here. Welcome to Painting with Shawna. I want to thank people who have subscribed for my YouTube channel and for Facebook. I really appreciate the support that you're giving me by subscribing. If you haven't had a chance to, head on over to YouTube or to Facebook and subscribe. That would be fantastic. The people who got my newsletter this week, they have seen the beginning of this new painting. Always exciting to start a new painting. And they had pictures of birding that I did this week, and I saw babies. They were a little far away, so I couldn't get close-up pictures because the mothers kept shooing them away and trying to protect them. I don't understand that. Anyway, so if you want to sign up for my newsletter, just head over to dancingravenstudio.ca or to Lampi-Legaree.ca. But either will work. It'll take you to the same place. Today, I'm starting on geraniums. That's what I'm starting on, the pictures over there. Geraniums. And if you saw the picture at the start of the feed, or if you've been on other social media and you saw the picture, you see that the red is super intense. Cameras really struggle with reds and deep pinks and deep purples. Our eyes are so much more sensitive than a camera can be. And then when you print it, it takes more information out. So I'm hoping I can show you how I work with reds in watercolor, because that's different than acrylic. Because with watercolor, I just add more water and it thins it out and it lightens it up. But with acrylic, you actually have to add white. And we all know what happens with red. If you add white, it turns to pink. But that is not our challenge today. Our challenge is to start painting this red flower to create as much interest in each of the petals. Behind me here, I have my Munsell pages. I'm going to take them over here. I'm going to show you, I've got a couple little florets from a red geranium. And we're going to talk about that and talk about chroma. And we're going to start painting. So let's get going. Okay, here we are. Here are the little florets. Let's get the other light on. Here are the little florets. One was a bloom that was closed last night. I just stuck them into some water so that they would survive. And here are the colors that I was seeing of them. And we're going to put it against the printed image here in just a minute. So that's the inside. So this is 7.5R, which is heading towards red, heading towards orange. So you can see that it's a more orange color than the 5R. And then I noticed some of the colors were this little bit of red purple, which I found really interesting. So I'm going to just put those aside. And here is the image that I'm working from. And here are the actual flowers and what I saw. And let's look at how the chips even line up. Now I was just looking for local color. What is that color when, and it's a perfect rainy day. Oh, I should say, if the power goes out, we've been having power outages, and then that might end this live stream much faster than I intended to. Okay, so when you put the chips on, can you see that they don't match at all? They don't even, well, a little bit almost in some areas, but that orange we're not seeing that's in the closed, on the outside of the closed bud. We're not seeing that red that's more orangey in the picture. We're seeing it quite pinky, which it's not. So taking a few minutes and actually working from life is very helpful. And there's all sorts of nuances. You can see where the light from this side is striking it here, and then there's this cast shadow happening. Let's get an end of a, let's see what we can find here. Oh, I don't have a pointer. Okay, I'll just take, oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, let's get this pointer going. And you can see the cast shadow as the petal is interrupting the light, and how much lighter it is here and here, and how much more the red here is more orange. Now, again, we're working with a camera, so cameras are limited. They're certainly not as good as our eyes. So I took a few minutes, and that helped me to choose the colors that I really want to work with. And I'm just going to put these chips down so that they're close by and I can see them. And there's the image. So the colors that I'm working from for the flowers, not for anything else yet. I haven't made those decisions. I need a little bit of paper to put underneath and protect the watercolor paper. I'm going to be using Winsor Red, which is a, you can see that has more orange in it. Quin Red, which again moves a little bit towards that, the blue, like you can see more of the red in it and working towards the blue. Alizarin Crimson Permanent, which is quite, you can see a fair amount of blue. So I'm going from an orange to sort of in between to the more blue red. I have New Gamboge. I have Burnt Umber to help darken and change the chromas as I need to. And I guess we didn't talk about chroma here. Let's take a second to do that. So when we look at the world outside, the objects that are most chromatic, the brightest, the most intense colors are definitely flowers and birds, and there are man-made items. But flowers want attention, so they are really high on the chroma. So when I bring out my Munsell book, the colors that are along here are far more gray than this color. It is the same color, just grayed down. So the chroma is, for this one here, is 16, which is one of the highest chromas you can get. And in acrylic, that would be a cad red light. I haven't looked at watercolor yet. To me, that's the Winsor Red. And so it's very intense. What I found really interesting is that the local value is a value 5. And that means that it is right in the middle of our value scale. So we have 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 is the middle, 4, 3, 2, 1. So these flowers have quite a dark chroma. Now, a dark value. So we add an intense chroma and we add a dark value, a medium value, and that is where we're at with these florets, which I find really fascinating. And watercolor is so perfect for painting flowers because it shows, you can really get the clear colors. To thin out A red, when you're painting with acrylic, you're going to use white paint. That does weird things to it. We know that red and white go together and make a pretty pink, and that's not always what you're trying to get to. But that's for another day. Today is watercolor, and let's get painting. Let's move this down. Make sure I have someplace to support my hand. Let's move the florets over here. And I forgot to put my timer on for my camera. Okay, let's hope it doesn't shut off before. So this is where I am so far. I've just been looking at the image and seeing where the lightest parts are and seeing where I think that there would be more nuances. So this is using that lovely new gamboge and Winsor red, Quin red, and permanent alizarin crimson. So let's start up here. Okay, what I also notice is I was drawing this with a sheet over top, a overhead projector sheet over top, and I missed all kinds of information because these colors are so close to each other that I'm having to come in and draw some of the petals in their right place to get the information that I'm actually seeing on here. Yeah, it's quite fascinating how inaccurate I have been in my drawings because I couldn't see what was happening, all the little extra bits. So let's get, I can see that there's some light in here, so I want that yellow. That yellow will glow through all of the transparent colors I'm using because I use transparent colors. And so it will still be there at the end. And I'm just going to quietly put some of the Winsor red. Now I have to go and find out, I think it's a pyrrole red. But, you know, every company names their things different things. And I'm going to get my protector thing up here. Put my hand down so that it's more steady. And I'm going to come in with, I'm not adding anything more than just the reds. So I'm just going to come in with the alizarin crimson permanent because it's a darker red, and just give that sense that it is, the petal is turning away from the light. Oh, thanks, Jill, for putting the links on. That makes life easier. It's a little hard to do while I'm painting. Okay, where's my other smaller brush here? Put that in my hand. Okay, so let's just clean up the edge here because I didn't get right to the edge, and this little brush I can control better. And we'll just make this shape nice, and make this shape nice, and have it, yeah, that's better. Okay. Now again, we're still doing what we've been doing all along with watercolor. We're working away from different areas. Okay, I'm going to lighten that up. Let's see if I've got my, oh! Well, that didn't work to hold it in place. Whack it out. I'll go get that thing of paint later. Okay. So I lighten that up so I don't see that line. I'm going to come in and I'm looking at the image to see where I'm seeing the shape. This one I can do without drawing it on. And there's the center. There we go. And again, we're going to start with, where is the yellow? Where is the lightest part of that petal? Because I want it to glow through that yellow to just sort of catch people's, it'll be just hidden underneath. You won't even realize that that's what you're seeing. But it's important to put in place. It makes a big difference. Okay, so we're going to come in with the Winsor Red. I can see that there is a lot of variation in here. I'm not worried about that variation right now. I'm just worried about getting the basic information in so that I can cover the page. Okay, so, and I can see that it's coming away from the light a bit, so I can add some of that alizarin crimson in to do that. And we want some variation, so I'm going to add, I forgot to put some of that Quin Red in, so let's do that here. And a little bit more just to get this edge going here. Okay. Okay, I like that petal. That's really pretty. Let's go to, oh no, that's green. We will come back to that. The thing I didn't get from the plant was all of the, any of the leaves. I didn't think about that last night. So I'm going to put in some yellow here because that's a very bright, intense area. And some yellow here. And it's a small area, so I can work without wetting it first because I can work quickly enough to be able to fill that in and get that information in and not have it dry too hard or too quick. And I'm putting it in very simply. I'm just, I'm not putting in a ton of paint. I'm again layering and layering and layering and building up the petals to keep that luminosity that flowers, because the sun can go right through there. Very they're very pretty petals. The sun flows through, so that we want to create that look when we're working and we're thinking about that look. Watercolor glows from underneath, and it's just, I just love watercolor. It's completely fun. So what's the weather like where you are at? It was 27 degrees here yesterday, and it is going down to 8 degrees. I think it's like 9 right now today. Yikes. It's a little chilly, but Yellowknife has that ability to go from one extreme to the other. That's the joy of living in a subarctic. Okay. What I see really interesting on this petal is it's turning away this way here. So let's get some of that alizarin crimson, which will just show me where I want it to be the darkest, that start to give that feeling of, I just remembered about an hour before I started to come downstairs here and get ready for the live stream, that I had said I would show you how to fix problems with watercolor. I didn't write that down last week when I went upstairs and promptly forgot because, well, it's summer and I want to be outside as much as I possibly can be right now. So I wrote it down for this week. So if you're on my newsletter, you will see what I'm going to try and fix and show how to fix. That's problems with streaking and problems with blossoms and problems with too much water and hard edges. I will show you that next week. It'll only take a few minutes to show you. I have to figure out how to deal with the camera and figure that all out. Okay. So we're building around and around, and because I have all this dry area here, that gives me some areas to come and work in. I just have to figure out what I'm seeing here. There. Oh, okay. Let's get, I want a little bit of that, still that yellow into it. Okay. So I'm seeing here, I've taken the yellow down just a little bit by adding some of the Winsor red to it, so it's less brilliant as it is over here. And I'm bringing it down into the center of the flower. And I see, I mean, it really does move away from the light, so I'm going to get some of that permanent alizarin crimson into it and do that so that it shows me where I want it to go darker. Okay, let that dry. Looking over here, I've got a petal over here that has an interesting light area right in the center there. Yep, right in the center. And then as it turns away, you've got the red, the Winsor red, and right at the tip you have the alizarin crimson, the darker because it's turning away. And then right in the center we have it turning away, so there's more of that alizarin crimson, and then the bridge in between of the quinacridone, the Winsor red. It's just, yeah. Now, I've lost too much of that yellow, so I'm just going to come in with a little bit more yellow, and I'm going to push the other paint aside. If it's wet, you can do this, and you just have it more wet than everything else is, which then creates blossoms, but that's not a huge issue at this point. You can mitigate that a bit by pulling some of the paint up and moving it around a bit. Okay, there we go. So now we have this really pretty, one of the things, pretty petal that has some dimensionality. One of the things that was really interesting is I put in the Winsor red and it went shoo, spread out. So it's created a really interesting texture. Now that's all going to be gone because I'm going to put layers and layers and layers over this. I always do that. Okay, so that flower is completely done. Let's look at this one here. Oh, I've got some back here that needs some attention here. So let's put in a little edge of the yellow right here because that's where I'm seeing a little light coming to it. And then over with the Winsor red. Careful not to put too much because I don't want it to bleed too much into that yellow. I don't want to lose that yellow. And we can come back and push that red back by adding a little bit more yellow. And I can put that tiny bit of alizarin crimson right at the edge and let it blend into the red. So if you're watching while I'm doing this live, just say hi and so that I can see who's here. It's always nice. I'm in my room talking to myself if nobody says hi, other than Jill. Thank you for coming, Jill. Okay, so now I'm coming to one that is quite dark. It's really underneath. So I'm going to use a lot of alizarin crimson and a little bit of the, I won't be using any yellow into this one at all. So I'm going to put in the Winsor red first, get the shape in there. Oh, I think I'm seeing a little bit of hint of yellow here. Huh. Okay, so there you go. Just put a little bit of yellow right at the edge here. And then what I'm going to do is come in with that alizarin crimson. And I can darken the alizarin crimson with just a touch of the phthalo green blue shade. In fact, I haven't decided if I'm going to put a black background on this. If you guys want to chime in and see what you think about it, I was kind of thinking about putting a black background. I didn't have time to get it done before the live stream, so I'm painting, and then I'll let it dry for a couple of days, and then I'll protect it with masking fluid and do a black background. I'm kind of thinking of doing that because I think it would push the reds. So if you want to chime in and say yes or no to the black background, that would be fantastic. Okay, so I see a petal here that I completely missed in the drawings. And it's quite dark, so I'm going to use the phthalo green, just a hint of it. I will be glad when I can get that other camera in the future so that you can see what I'm mixing. Okay, so I'm going to come in and build the shape up. I'm going to be careful not to get too close to where it is wet because I don't want to go into the next petal. It's pretty, I mean, it's raining outside. Yeah, it's raining outside. I guess I missed a whole couple hour rain the other day because I was painting and didn't look up at once. We've been pretty dry recently, so it's actually nice to have the rain. And I wish we could send some to other places and share our abundance of rain. Ooh, interesting. I think I'm just going to focus it on the flowers. I'm not going to do the buds yet. They're here and they're all the way around in this area, but I think I'm just going to focus in on the petals. So I have, make sure I've got some yellow, and I'm looking at, where am I at here? Right here. So I'm seeing the yellow on the edge, and then I'm going to come in with that quinacridone and build the petal this shape. It's interesting how the shapes look different once you start to paint them. And I can see a little bit of that alizarin crimson with a little bit of the phthalo green. Just bring that in right at the edge. Now, I went into this other petal, and I'm just going to come in with a clean brush that I've taken most of the water off. I'm going to take my paper towel and dry it up, and then I'm going to fix where I went too far. There you go. You can do that when it's still damp. You can't do that once it starts to dry. So I'm just going to tickle the edge here and see if I can pull off that little bit extra. It's light enough that shouldn't leave much of a problem. I am gonna Okay, there we go. I think that's working now. Yes. Okay. Just wanted to shut off the camera and turn it back on because I hadn't turned on my alarm properly. Okay. Now let's go over here. Oh, all these little petals. There's all sorts of florets to make the geranium. So this is my grandma Lawrence's favorite flower. Though I wouldn't have known that when I was growing up because she wasn't really good at taking care of flowers. But my mom tells me that as I age, which, you know, is kind of cool. Now, I don't know if she liked red ones or what color she preferred of them. Okay, where am I here? I am here. Okay. Okay. But my friend Hillary, red is best. She tells me that all the time. She loves red, and that's where I got my florets to compare against for my Munsell book. Was I was at her place last night, and she had these beautiful tons of these red, and she was very excited that I'm painting a red geraniums, because she loves geraniums. Okay, so where are we at here? Let's look. Oh, we have an interesting shaped one here. It's pretty dark. I'm going to bounce back the graphite just a little bit, just so that I can see the information, but it doesn't peek through and I don't have graphite going in too much into my paint. Though by the time I finish, it's going to be pretty dark. So, okay, so each one of these, this is a bud that's just starting to open. So all the edges are capturing light. So let's see where we're at here. Capturing light, and it's pushing away from the light as it comes down into here. Oh, it's raining really hard now. Okay. Get some more of that Winsor red and put it in here. And fill in that beautiful little petal of the bud that's opening up. I'm hoping I'm not moving too much for you guys. Okay. Little bits of white in there. I'm just going to take that clean brush and move the paint around a bit. So are there any questions out there? I'm happy to answer questions. Okay, so let's look at this petal. It doesn't touch, so I can work on this one. Where am I here? I'm coming this way and down, and then a little bit of that, and a little bit of the Winsor red. Okay, build that up into there. That's the shape of that petal. Try not to obliterate the yellow. We'll just bring a little bit more yellow in to push back that red. Oops. My brush got a little contaminated with the red. And I'm going to push back that red. There we go. Pushing back that red to get that yellow on the edge. Because I want that glow of the light hitting it to remain. And the bud is opening and all the edges are glowing. And we're going to put a little bit of the, let's get some more water on there. Alizarin crimson just down here so that I know where it's darkening. And it just blends up into it. Okay. That's good. I'm going to have to, oh, here, we can go over here. Now this is interesting. Here, because the light is flowing through the petal and making it glow, I'm actually seeing, and I didn't say that this is a color that I was going to work with, because I only put a tiny bit on my palette, I put a tiny bit of the quinacridone magenta. We've been working with that on the peony, and I see that there's a little hint of that purpley red, that beautiful color. And then I'm going to come in with the very orange Winsor red next to it. And I'm going to be very careful not to obliterate it by mixing the colors together. I'm just touching the edges so that they'll blend together, but they won't take over, and you won't lose that little bit of that purpley pink color that's there. Okay, so let's go up here. Okay, so I'm seeing where the light is striking is around here, just in this area, and a little bit over here, which would make sense because this petal is showing lots of that, showing that at this point too. And then I'm going to come in with that, the red that we're using the most is the Winsor red, and then I add highlights in of others. And I'm going to come in and just touch the edges. And then I'm going to bring in that alizarin to put in underneath. Just where I'm seeing it's the darkest. And let that just settle in and blend in with the Winsor red. Okay, and you see I got it a little bit darker. I mean, watercolor looks dark and then lightens as it shifts as it dries. Okay, let's look at this one here. Okay, so I'm going to bring a little bit of the yellow into here. And you can see I'm really not wetting the space. I'm just making sure I've got enough paint on my brush to be able to keep moving. And as it comes down, it's still pretty glowing. It's not moving at all into the alizarin at all. So I'm just going to bring that quinacridone red in to the bottom for variation. And I'm just gently touching with my brush back and forth and shaping that petal as I see it. Okay. Okay, so I think we can move over here. The nice part when you're working with flowers that have lots and lots of little petals is you can just keep working. I don't have to stop and get my hair blower out and dry the piece so that I could keep going. I can just keep going. And that is really more efficient. Just is more efficient. Okay, so we're going to come around, and I see there's a little touch of a glow over here too. So let's put that in place. And then bringing that quinacridone red in, we're going to bring some variation in. So today I was looking at my very first acrylic I'm going to do when I move over to birds, and that will be in and around August 20th. And okay, where was I? Yes. So I can see that it's darker down here, so I'm going to add that alizarin to let it flow in and come around. There we go. So am I frozen? Is that what's happening? Facebook has been a real problem with it. YouTube works way better So if you guys want to head over to YouTube, you can continue to watch me there. I'm going to see if I update it, if it's going to be happier. Okay. Okay. Does it seem happier? I don't know. When I sent out my newsletter, I just said to people, come over to YouTube. They seem to, I mean, that's what their whole medium is just streaming and stuff. Yeah. Okay. Isn't this coming along? It's starting to look really pretty. I mean, it's got a long way to go, but it's still looking pretty. So I see some red down here that I could just bring in down here. And it's pretty dark, so I'm just going to take some of the alizarin and some of the quinacridone red and blend it down in here. All the way into here. Take some of the paint off my brush so that I can soak back because I had a little bit too much water in there. And then clean my brush. Okay, okay, now we have a shape here, but that's going to interfere with that. So can't do that one yet. And we can do, interesting. We'll do this one here. What I'm realizing is this shape comes up and then it comes down with, and that's actually a full petal together. But you can't, let's put my hand onto something. Okay. There we go. Now there's a hard edge there because I realized that I missed part of the petal. I'm just going to rinse my brush, dry it off, and soften that edge and blend it into what's already there. So as long as you move fairly quickly, you can correct most everything with a brush that you have cleaned and dried off. Okay, there we go. Okay. Over here, is there one over here? I see that one, and I see this one. Okay. After my show is done, I'm going to put the red in first, and there's a bunch of graphite there, so before I go much further, I'm going to pull back what I can there, and then because you don't want the yellow being mixed in with the graphite, and I'm going to come along this edge here and I'm going to blend that together. I love flowers that have lots of different petals and moving against the light, and it's really exciting to paint images like this. Okay, now here's a nuance. We're just going to get some of that darker yellow again. I'm going to here, and then I have a shape that comes around here and then goes down. So I'm going to pull some of that red down there. And then I'm going to take the alizarin, which is the darker, and I'm going to place it in. And it is a really dark value in this little crevice. Though it won't be when I'm just starting, but you know, that's what we're working towards, is creating that interesting dark shapes that and the value variations that are in these flowers. Okay, here we go. Interesting. This one actually comes down and I completely missed that. So I'm just going to put that in and soften the edge to that yellow to get that flower where I want it to be, that the whole petal. Okay, we've got that. And do we have another? We have that. Again, I missed. We'll just put that together and blend it too. So this painting is only 16 by 20, and that's what I'll be working on watercolors now, or just predominantly, well, they'll all be 16 by 20s until I move into the birds, and then I work larger again and go back down smaller. Okay, let's get over here. Now these petals are larger, so I'm really going to want to look at what I'm seeing here and make sure that I've got the information that I'm looking for and the shapes that I want. And I'm putting a fair amount of water with that silver black velvet, which holds a lot of water. If you could see it, because you can't see it from your direction, if you could see it, you could see that it's quite a puddle on the petal. And that can create problems if you have too much, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. It's just going to soak in anyway. And I can come back and dry my brush and just pull the excess paint off. And I'm going to work with a little larger of my my Lowell Cornells that you can't even get anymore. Okay, so what am I seeing when I look there? Okay, let's get that yellow in place first. So I can see that the edge, especially up here, is, got some red into that yellow. But that's all right. This is a pretty dark color, so I'm not going to worry about it. And down along this edge is some of the yellow, that glow. And then we're going to come in and just build the rest of the petal. And then we're going to use the alizarin crimson to tell us where the dark area is on this petal. It's not dark right to the edge because, of course, light travels through petals, so you can get really interesting variations. So I'm just going to put the lighter Winsor red next to where the dark shape is and let that do its drying thing. Okay, let's come down over here. Now this is really, like, this part of the flower is getting way more light than this floret down here. So we're not going to put yellow, well, maybe we will put a little bit, but not a lot. Actually, I'm not seeing, I'll do it anyway. It's going to hide away anyway. It's going to be painted over. And a little bit there. But it's not as bright as that yellow up there will be. Okay, and bring that lovely Winsor red, our main red, in. Get it in place. And then I'm going to look to see, and going over that petal, I'm going to come in with my paper towel and just tidy it up. Though it will be, the background will be completed. Okay, and I'm seeing where that darkness is right along the edge. That's where it's the darkest. So we're going to put a little bit of that alizarin crimson permanent in that darker edge. Okay. I need a little sip of something here. Okay, so let's go up to a petal that's not going to touch this edge. And what I'm seeing is a white highlighted area. So I want to try and keep my brush away from there as much as I possibly can. I'm not going to touch that. If I don't put water onto it, then the paint won't run into it because it hits that edge of the water and then the paint won't go any further. So this is and I can see a little bit of that quinacridone magenta sort of glowing through because the light is hitting it in such a way. And just over up here, not any further. I'm not seeing it any place else. And we're going to come down with the Winsor Red and build that up. And where I'm seeing, actually there was some yellow in there that I'm missing because I was thinking about the white and not thinking about the yellow, the highlight. So I'm just going to push some of that yellow in here and see if we can make that glow happen. Clean my brush, dry it off, pull some of that paint away here. Come back with a little bit of the Winsor Red and put it right next to that white highlight. I can see at this part of the petal, it's starting to go down. It's moving away from the light. So let's put a little bit of the alizarin crimson in. Okay, now we're going to move to the top part of that same petal. And what am I looking at here? Okay, that's what I'm looking at. So the top part is definitely going to have that really pretty yellow glow because it's capturing a lot of light. That's going to be a really rich, intense red at the end of this. Okay. And I can see a little bit of that quinacridone magenta just touching the edge here. Now I don't want to touch it too much to the yellow. I just want it to be next to the yellow. I don't want it mixing in too much. I want that pinky purple to sort of stand out and show itself up. Then I'm going to bring our Winsor Red and I'm going to bring it next. Again, not mixing it close. What am I seeing here? Oh, let's get some water onto my brush so I can move things around because didn't water this before and I probably should have done that. Oh, and I went over the white. Okay, well, there you go. That is always the challenge of trying to, okay. And it doesn't have to be pure white because it's actually not pure white, but it does need me to pay more attention here. Okay, down we come. Okay, I'm gonna shut off my camera and turn it back on. Okay, you're working. Start that again. We are just 12 minutes away from being finished for today. Let's see what damage we can do this by just staying focused. Okay. Let's move way over here because we can do that. And I want to water this space, this petal. If you follow me on Instagram, you will see an update of this probably tonight because I'm on day 75 of painting for my show. With a countdown, this is the 25th day that I've painted towards my show, so I'm 1/4 of the way through the amount of work that I need to get done for my show. And I never know how many I'm going to get done. I just get done what I get done, and then that's what hangs at the show. Because they always take longer than I ever think they're going to take, and then so I make no commitments about the number of paintings I'm going to have at the show. I'm going to take some of that quinacridone red and float it in here because I can see that there's an interesting variation happening there. And I'm not, though it's not in the light, I'm not seeing that the petal is turning too much away from the light. Maybe there's a little bit of the alizarin right in here, that bend, but that's it. Okay, so we've done that one. And of course, if you go over, that's what paper towel is for, just to tidy up edges. And I can put a little bit more of that Winsor red in. There. Okay, so now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to look at this shape and try and figure out what I've missed, because I can see, well, actually I'm going to bypass that. I'm going to have to come back and draw that. That's got a bunch of shapes that I can't do anything with yet. I have to redraw in. So add some water, move it around. And it doesn't matter if the water gets a little bit pink because I'm, cleaning my brush and my water is not perfectly clean at this point now. Because we're painting over it, it would be, if it was a super light painting, it would be a problem, but this is not a super light painting. I don't do anything that's super light. And I can see that quinacridone magenta, which I don't have enough on my palette, is right here too. Interesting where it's hiding. Okay, and building up here. And I can see that actually is the alizarin crimson in this corner. Like I can see that it's moving away from the light. I love the subtleties of petals. They're a really great place to start painting. Flowers are a really great place because there's no worry about if the petal's not perfect. And when you're first starting, your drawing skills will be at a beginner's level. They're not going to be at a more masterly level. That comes as time goes on. And flowers are super forgiving. And that's where I started. And I started with just 5x7s and 5 inches by 7 inches. I didn't paint very large at all because I didn't have patience to paint large. And I really wasn't too confident about what I was doing. So starting small allowed me to build my skills without the stress of working really, really large. And this is the Winsor Red. And I'm going to just touch it so that it blends in a little bit more. And let's get that alizarin crimson because it gets darker as it goes in. Okay. Oh, I like that shape. Kind of reminds me of, what is those candy corns? It's kind of what it's looking like right now. That particular shape. Okay, so I don't know if that's dry enough. So let's move down here. And again, it's a bigger shape, so I'm going to fill it in with water so that it gives me the time to keep moving. Oh, it's got an interesting light thing happening. And that's part of that petal. Okay. So the yellow comes along here and just here. Ooh, I got a little bit too much water on there, so I'm just going to pull some of that water out. And then, so did we decide if we're doing a black background or not? Oops, keep it steady. I don't want to make you seasick while I'm working. Well, I guess I'm going to do that. Nobody else wants to vote for it. I'll just vote for it myself. I guess we could do a really deep green background too, because red and green, but there's going to be enough green on here in this area here that might not be, it's not probably that important. And I could do a deep blue by using indigo or urethane or whatever that, however you say that color. Watercolor has a lot, I have a lot more tubes of paint of watercolor than I do of acrylic. I work, because of the way watercolor blends, I work with a lot more, with a wider variety in my palette. Okay, I think we could get probably a couple more things done here, and then it's going to be time to wind it up. It's amazing how fast an hour goes. Okay, so I'm going to do this petal because this is dry enough I should be able to work next to it. Now this petal is really interesting because the yellow is actually in the center. It's not in the edge, the way the light is striking the petal and coming through from, bouncing around and doing its thing. Oops, don't touch my hand down there. It's still damp down there and I don't want to. Okay, so bring that with me so I know where I'm going. And then be very careful here. I don't want to have the, more water. More water. Probably a bigger brush would help too. The size of the petal really dictates the size of the brush you want to work with, because you really don't want to be working too small, because when you work too small, that's when you get into streaky and problems, because you're just taking too long to get around the petal and around the shape. So I'm always varying my brush size to fit the size of the area that I'm trying to work with. Okay, and then we're bringing in ooh, yeah, that's exuberant. Okay, so if you do an exuberant thing, you clean off your brush, you have fresh water on it, and you just pull the paint where you want it to be. You can't imagine how dark this is going to be, but by the time I finish doing my layers and layers and layers that I do, it'll be a really intense red as I'm willing to make it. Yep, and I keep putting my hand in this brush, in this petal. Well, I think this is a good place to stop today. We just have a couple more minutes, so let's just stop there. I'm going to bring this with me so you can see it standing up next to me, and we're going to move over. So you can see that it's starting to build up. I will continue to build all of the petals and make it cover the whole object, the whole painting. I'm probably going to let it dry for a couple of days, especially since it's raining today. And what I'm going to do is cover with liquid masking fluid and do that black. And that black will take me 5 or 6 days to do, because I'll do one in the morning and I'll do a layer at night to get to where I want it to be, that really rich, intense black. And I use alizarin crimson and the phthalo green blue shade to make a beautiful transparent black. So when we come back next time, I will have worked further on this, but I will have a black background, and we will have all of the flowers and so forth done, and I might even already be on the second level. It depends on how my week goes. Anyway, thank you very much for coming. Remember to subscribe, Facebook or YouTube, and I have a newsletter, and I will see you guys next week. And there's my alarm telling me it's time to go.